Field Report hash E2024-117. Classification Maximum Security. Subject: The Sunset Valley Incident. Author: Junior Anthropologist Zix 427B. Department: Human Preservation Methods, Galactic Institute of Primitive Species Research. In all my years studying primitive civilizations, no single event has caused more embarrassment to the Galactic Defense Council than the Earth invasion attempt of 2024. As the designated researcher for human preservation techniques, I feel compelled to document this extraordinary failure, if only to prevent future species from repeating these catastrophic mistakes. The Vraxian Empire, renowned across 3 spiral arms for their methodical conquest strategies and unbroken string of victories, chose to begin their Earth invasion at a facility designated as Sunset Valley Retirement Home in the terrestrial region of Florida. Their preliminary scans had indicated this location housed humans in their final life phase, separated from the general population and requiring regular medical maintenance. By all measurable metrics, it should have been the perfect staging ground for their conquest. The Vraxians' first critical error was failing to recognize that they had chosen to arrive during what humans call bingo night. At precisely 1847 hours Earth time, Commander Krell and the first wave of Vraxian shock troops materialized in the facility's main recreation room. Their timing interrupted a complex numerical ritual involving 40 senior humans, illuminated cards with numbered grids, and small translucent markers that seemed to hold immense spiritual significance. At the center of this gathering sat Martha the Menace Wilson, an 83-year-old former military nurse whose service record included 3 terrestrial wars, 6 successful offspring, and what she called 2 marriages that finally ended in peace treaties. More importantly, Martha was 1 number away from winning the evening's grand prize, a complimentary pudding cup from the cafeteria. Commander Krell, following standard invasion protocol, activated his universal translator and announced with appropriate gravitas, "Citizens of Earth, your planet is now under the control of the Vraxian Empire. Please submit to immediate biological processing." Martha Wilson looked up from her bingo card, adjusted her glasses with deliberate slowness, and uttered the words that would later be inscribed in the Galactic Museum of Military Disasters. "Young man, I fought in 3 wars, raised 6 children and survived 2 husbands. I'm not about to let some overdressed space gecko ruin my bingo night." The silence that followed this declaration was broken only by the soft click of Martha's bingo doorbell being recapped and placed precisely in the center of her card. That small sound, according to later analysis, marked the beginning of the most humiliating defeat in Vraxian military history. The first indication that the Vraxian Empire had catastrophically misread their invasion target came exactly 3 minutes after Commander Krell's announcement. Frank Kowalski, retired Boeing engineer of 42 years, looked up from his half-finished crossword puzzle and uttered a phrase that would later become the title of an entire chapter in the Galactic Military Academy's textbook. "Hell, this ain't even the worst budget crisis I've handled." Frank's particular genius lay in his ability to repurpose seemingly harmless medical equipment into what he called retirement-grade weaponry. Within 15 minutes of the invasion's commencement, he had transformed the facility's fleet of Medicare-approved mobility scooters into what the Vraxian Battle Report would later describe as terrain-violating horror machines. "You see," Frank explained to the Galactic Council's investigation committee, "when you've spent 4 decades stretching military contracts to cover design changes, you learn a thing or two about creative engineering. Besides, these scooters were due for an upgrade anyway. The turning radius was terrible." The Vraxian Combat Manual, a 12-volume work covering countermeasures for everything from primitive projectile weapons to advanced plasma arrays, contained no protocol for dealing with elderly humans performing synchronized attack formations in heavily modified rascal scooters. The sight of Agnes Peterson, age 91, executing a perfect drift around the East Wing while firing a barrage of denture-cleaning tablets from a repurposed pill organizer caused 3 Vraxian tactical officers to submit immediate retirement paperwork. In the facility's chemistry lab, previously known as the Medication Distribution Center, Betty Chen, PhD in chemistry, and self-proclaimed Queen of Substitutions during the war rationing years, had already begun what she euphemistically called inventory reorganization. Her exact modifications remain classified under 17 different international laws, but surviving Vraxian soldiers still undergo mandatory therapy when exposed to the scent of prune juice. During the war, Betty later testified while stirring her tea with innocent precision, we learned to make cakes without eggs, sugar, or flour. You really think I can't whip up something special with an entire pharmacy at my disposal? The Vraxians' fundamental error was their failure to understand what a human retirement home represents. Their tactical AI had classified it as a storage facility for obsolete biological units. What they actually encountered was a concentrated repository of humans with decades of accumulated skills, inexhaustible patience honed by years of dealing with bureaucracy, and most dangerously, absolutely nothing left to lose. Martha the Menace Wilson established her command center in the crafts room, converting the weekly activity schedule into what she called Operation Get Off My Lawn. Her first strategic move was activating the facility's emergency phone tree, a communication network so Byzantine and efficient that it made Vraxian quantum entanglement technology look like a game of broken telephone. "Listen here, sweetheart," Martha was recorded telling a captured Vraxian lieutenant. "I managed the night shift at County General during the Chicago riots. You think your little light show is going to ruffle my feathers and stand up straight when I'm talking to you? The day's first major tactical victory came when Herbert Goldman, former high school shop teacher and self-described tinkerer, discovered that the Vraxians' advanced battle armor was highly susceptible to the electromagnetic frequencies emitted by modified pacemakers. This revelation led to what the residents gleefully called Operation Skip a Beat, the full details of which remain redacted from most official reports. As the first day of resistance drew to a close, the Vraxian command structure found itself facing an unprecedented situation. Their carefully planned invasion was being systematically dismantled by a group of humans who kept stopping mid-battle to take their medications, complain about the thermostat settings, and remind their attackers to watch their language. As a researcher specialized in human combat tactics, I must note that what followed defied every principle of conventional warfare in the known galaxy. The residents of Sunset Valley Retirement Home initiated what military historians now refer to as the Great Inconvenience, though Martha Wilson simply called it teaching these whippersnappers some manners. The deployment of hearing aids as sonic weapons marked the beginning of what Vraxian military records label the Screech Offensive. Dorothy Simmons, who had spent the last decade gradually increasing her hearing aid volume to what her grandchildren termed jet engine levels, made the initial discovery. When placed near the Vraxians' sophisticated communication systems, her hearing aids created a feedback loop that she described as rather like the sound my Herbert used to make when he fell asleep watching Wheel of Fortune. The effect on Vraxian neural networks was catastrophic. Their highly sensitive auditory systems, evolved for detecting subtle variations in cosmic radiation, proved completely unprepared for what Dorothy called a little ambient noise. Within hours, 17 Vraxian communication officers had submitted formal complaints about that blessed ringing that wouldn't stop, even after they returned to their ships. "Well," Dorothy explained while adjusting her volume settings, "if they're going to invade during my favorite shows, they shouldn't be surprised when they hear about it." The strategic deployment of dentures, however, revealed the true genius of senior warfare. Harold Thompson's third set of false teeth, reinforced by what he described as that fancy new adhesive they keep advertising, became the bane of Vraxian engineering corps. The teeth were discovered clamped onto their main power conduit, displaying bite strength that violated several laws of physics. "You try chewing through 60 years of hospital food," Harold later testified to the Galactic Council. "These choppers can handle anything the universe throws at them. Also, has anyone seen my backup set? I think I left them in the auxiliary power generator." But it was Betty Chen's modified prune juice formula that earned its own classification as a weapon of mass disruption. The exact composition remains sealed under the Galactic Geneva Convention, but surviving Vraxian troops still attend mandatory counseling sessions to deal with what they cryptically refer to as the movement. The retirement home's strategic candy reserves proved equally devastating. Jean Martinez, former physics teacher and self-proclaimed hard candy enthusiast, calculated the exact trajectory needed to launch butterscotch discs into Vraxian ventilation systems. Her improvised candy cannon, constructed from repurposed knitting needles and rubber bands, brought 3 assault vehicles to a permanent halt. "My grandkids never visit because they say I always try to feed them too many sweets," Jean noted, while calibrating her confectionery artillery. "But you see, Grandma always knows best." The psychological impact of what the residents called aggressive caring proved most devastating of all. The Vraxian military, trained to resist torture and conventional warfare, had no defense against being simultaneously adopted by 40 grandparents who insisted they looked peaky and needed to eat something. Several elite Vraxian warriors were found sitting in the community room, meekly accepting cookies while nodding along to stories about someone's nephew who also works with computers. 2 entire platoons were cornered in the library and subjected to a comprehensive showing of vacation photos from 1987, an experience that led to the creation of a new category of combat trauma in the Vraxian military medical manual. As Day 2 of the invasion dawned, the Vraxian command received increasingly desperate communications from their ground forces. "They won't stop feeding us. The one called Martha keeps adjusting my collar. Request immediate extraction. They have photo albums. Why do they keep asking if I'm warm enough?" The transformation of a local resistance into a global phenomenon began, as many modern revolutions do, with a teenager who couldn't be bothered to log off during dinner. Tommy Chen, 16-year-old grandson of Betty, the chemist Chen, had been FaceTiming his grandmother during her weekly recipe complaint session when the invasion commenced. Tommy, demonstrating what xenobiologists now classify as Generation Z combat instincts, immediately began live-streaming the entire incident. His running commentary, "OMG guys, my grandma just weaponized Metamucil, this is literally insane," provided the galaxy with its first unfiltered look at human defensive capabilities. The video of Martha Wilson lecturing a Vraxian battle commander about proper floor maintenance during an invasion went viral within minutes. The clip of her threatening to get the wooden spoon accumulated 50 million views in the first hour, spawning countless remixes set to what humans call sick beats. "Young man," Martha's now iconic response echoed across social platforms. "I don't care if you're the emperor of the whole dang universe. In this facility, we take our shoes off at the door, and that includes battle armor. I didn't spend all morning mopping for you to track space debris everywhere." The hashtag #GrandVzalians began trending globally, birthing an entire genre of memes. Particular attention focused on what social media dubbed the Vraxian Education Hour, during which Eleanor Thompson, retired librarian and self-proclaimed stickler for proper pronunciation, cornered several alien soldiers and began correcting their English. "No, dear," Eleanor's voice rang out in countless viral clips. "It's, please surrender immediately, not, please surrender immediate-like. Were you raised in a meteor shower? Enunciate." But it was the retirement home's weekly newsletter, hastily repurposed into a resistance broadcast by former local newspaper editor Jim Patterson, that truly captured the global imagination. Written in his characteristic style of mixing critical military updates with complaints about the dining room menu, it included such masterpieces as, "Alien invasion continues, also someone keeps taking my tapioca." "Battle for Earth rages, Bridge Club still on for Thursday. Vraxian forces in retreat, reminder about proper recycling procedures." "Critical defense update, who left their dentures in the command center?" The newsletter's combination of tactical information and passive-aggressive notes about proper bingo etiquette became required reading for military strategists worldwide. Several five-star generals admitted to subscribing primarily for Jim's scathing reviews of the alien invasion's impact on his tomato garden. As the story spread, retirement communities across the globe began mobilizing. Reports flooded in of senior citizens worldwide preparing their own defenses, usually scheduled carefully around afternoon naps and daily medication routines. The Melbourne Senior Centre announced they were ready to give these aliens a proper talking to, while the Berlin Grey Panthers issued a formal warning about their upcoming bake sale being slightly more militarized than usual. Perhaps most terrifying for the Vraxian forces was the emergence of what came to be known as the Grandma Network, an informal but eerily efficient intelligence sharing system based entirely on weekly phone calls and bridge club meetings. Military analysts remain baffled by how news of alien troop movements could travel faster through this network than through advanced surveillance systems. "Oh, honey," Martha explained to a bewildered UN representative, "you'd be amazed what Ethel from the third floor knows about everyone's business. Even aliens can't hide from her window watching." The final phase of Earth's defense began, as many legendary military operations do, during the Sunset Valley Retirement Home's regularly scheduled craft hour. Martha Wilson's knitting circle, already notorious among Vraxian forces for their psychological warfare tactics, had made a discovery that would change the course of galactic history. The breakthrough came when Herbert Goldman mentioned that his modified pacemaker could interfere with alien technology. This sparked what Martha called a lovely little chat among the knitting circle about electromagnetic fields. The resulting conversation would later be classified as premeditated weapons development by the Galactic Council. Really, it was just common sense, Martha explained to the Galactic Defense Committee, while pointedly adjusting her knitting needles. When you've been in the medical field as long as I have, you learn a thing or two about electrical impulses, and when you've been knitting as long as we have, you learn a thing or two about conducting energy through metal. The rest was just, what do the kids call it? A happy little accident? What followed was dubbed the synchronized cardiac event in official reports, though residents preferred to call it Operation Heartbeat. At precisely 4:15 p.m., during the usual medication round, 17 residents with pacemakers, coordinated by Martha's knitting circle, executed what scientists would later describe as a localized electromagnetic pulse generated by precisely timed cardiac rhythm modifications, amplified by strategically placed aluminum knitting needles. The effect on Vraxian technology was immediate and devastating. Their advanced systems, designed to withstand everything from solar flares to quantum disruption weapons, proved completely vulnerable to what was essentially a synchronized pacemaker pulse channeled through a matrix of knitting supplies. The timing had to be perfect, Betty Chen noted while calmly working on a sweater. Just like baking, really. Too soon and nothing happens. Too late, and you've ruined the whole batch. Fortunately, we're very good at following recipes. But it was the implementation of the bingo gambit that truly showcased their tactical genius. The seemingly random numbers called out during their daily bingo games were actually coordinates for global resistance movements, transmitted through a network of retirement homes. The Vraxians, having intercepted these transmissions, spent precious resources trying to decode what they believed to be an advanced military cipher. B14, that's the bathroom break signal. N45, time for medication. G59. Someone needs to adjust their compression socks, Martha later explained to military historians. We didn't need fancy codes. We've been doing this every Tuesday for 20 years. The confusion reached its peak when the residents began deploying what they called aggressive hospitality. The Vraxian forces, trained to resist torture and psychological warfare, found themselves completely unprepared for being aggressively fed sugar cookies while being asked about their personal lives. "No one leaves my presence hungry," declared Dorothy Simmons, wielding her cookie tray like a shield. "I don't care if they're trying to conquer Earth. In this house, we show hospitality. The breaking point came during what would later be known as the Great Scrapbook Offensive. Elderly residents worldwide began sending their family photo albums to Vraxian command ships. The sheer volume of carefully preserved memories, complete with detailed annotations and frequent digressions about who married whom in 1973, overwhelmed their data processing systems. But it was the coordinated deployment of the retirement home's secret weapon that finally brought the Vraxian Empire to its knees. At precisely 5 p.m., every grandmother involved in the resistance simultaneously deployed what they called the guilt trip maneuver. "We're not angry," Martha's voice echoed across every Vraxian communication channel. "We're just disappointed. We know you can do better than this. Is this really what you want to do with your life? Invading planets? What would your mother say?" The effect was catastrophic. Thousands of voices, perfected over decades of family gatherings, all expressing disappointment in the invasion force's life choices. The psychological impact of phrases like, "We only want what's best for you and you have so much potential," proved too much for even the most hardened Vraxian warriors. "It reminded me of my own maternal unit," sobbed one Vraxian commander during his surrender. "She always wanted me to become a space architect, but no, I had to join the invasion forces." The formal surrender of the Vraxian Empire took place in what the United Nations initially deemed an inappropriate venue, the Sunset Valley Retirement Home's community room, during regularly scheduled bingo hours. When the Secretary-General suggested moving the ceremony to a more prestigious location, Martha Wilson fixed him with what surviving witnesses described as the look. "Young man," she declared, adjusting her glasses, "I've already rearranged the afternoon medication schedule for this. If the aliens want to surrender, they can do it between number calls just like everybody else." The resulting ceremony, broadcast across 17 galaxies, featured the Supreme Commander of the Vraxian forces signing surrender documents, while Betty Chen supervised the proper distribution of cookies and reminded everyone that refreshments are limited to 2 per person, and yes, that includes invading aliens. The terms of surrender, now enshrined in the galactic archives as the Sunset Valley Accords, included several unprecedented clauses. All future diplomatic communications must be preceded by a polite phone call, not just showing up unannounced like we're running some kind of intergalactic bed and breakfast. Invasion forces are required to wipe their feet before entering any Earth building. A mandatory exchange program where young Vraxian officers spend time with Earth grandparents to learn some proper manners. Regular updates from former invasion forces about their career progress and personal well-being. Mandatory attendance at monthly potluck dinners, because really, we should all get to know each other better. Martha's victory speech at the UN Security Council became legendary, though it had to be rescheduled twice due to conflicting medical appointments, and once because that nice young man who does my hair could only fit me in on Tuesday. When she finally took the podium, she spent the first 15 minutes showing pictures of her grandchildren before addressing Earth's new position in galactic politics. "Now, I don't want to hear about any of you getting too full of yourselves," she warned the assembled world leaders. "Yes, we saved Earth, but that's no excuse for poor manners. And would it kill anyone to send a thank you note once in a while?" The Galactic Council, in response to the incident, created a new classification for Earth: Planet Protected by the Ancient Ones. This designation, the highest warning level in galactic civilization, includes a mandatory briefing for all passing ships that consists entirely of footage from the invasion attempt, concluding with Martha Wilson's now famous phrase, "Don't make me come up there." Retirement homes across Earth have been reclassified as military installations, though this has changed little in their daily operations. The only noticeable difference is the addition of tactical response to their weekly activity schedules, usually scheduled between water aerobics and afternoon tea. The Vraxian Empire, thoroughly transformed by the experience, has established a cultural exchange program with Earth's retirement communities. Young Vraxian officers now regularly receive care packages containing cookies, hand-knitted scarves, and gentle reminders about maintaining good posture. Martha Wilson, adjusting her newly awarded Galactic Defense Medal, which she insists clashes with her cardigan, offered this final observation for our report. You know what the problem is with aliens these days? They're all wrapped up in their fancy technology and invasion plans. Nobody takes the time to sit down, have a nice cup of tea, and talk things through anymore. But that's all right, we've got all the time in the world to teach them. Now, dear, you look thin. Have you eaten today? Enfield Report. Classification maximum security. Additional note. Martha Wilson has reviewed and approved this document, though she would like everyone to know that bingo is still every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Aliens welcome, but please bring a snack to share. Final warning, she's watching, she's always watching.